suspect believed to be the United Healthcare CEO assassin has been brought in for questioning. The suspect was found in Pennsylvania in a McDonald's with a bunch of fake IDs, the same gun that was used, and with a manifesto. The person's name is Luigi Mangione, and his Twitter account has been revealed. Now, this person has been retweeting the likes of Elon Musk, Peter Thiel. He has been sharing some incel and right-wing content, and he's kind of a tech bro. We initially thought that maybe this was some sort of class war on the horizon, but it turns out it could just be the same old story, which is right-winger, possibly incel with a gun. Helena, I want to get your reaction to this. I mean, you're not jumping to conclusions whether he's right-winger or not. I'm not surprised with the makeup of the person, of what we know so far. But it still obviously shows that this isn't a left-right issue when it comes to healthcare.
I mean, I was scanning through some of the news stories, and of course, the information is breaking as we go live. So all of these things are going to be coming out in dribs and drabs over the next hours and the next couple of days as well, as we kind of get a bigger profile of what the killer is going to be like. But the manifesto is reported, this is by the New York Post, so take it with a pinch of salt, to say such things as, these parasites had it coming, and imagine a society where they make everybody unhappy and then sell you drugs to make you happier. So regardless of whether this person has particular social or cultural opinions, looking at his feed there's a kind of a big mishmash of stuff about the failure of liberal society creating people who are hyper individualized, right? These are kind of critiques that you get from both the left and the right. So the jury is still out, but personally, I think that even if we don't take this individual's opinions as being obvious to everyone right now, what we can look at is a broad societal problem that we have, which is the issue with liberalism and its way to identify problems. A lack of materialist analysis of how problems develop will always lead to individualized solutions, rather than saying, well, the healthcare industry is to blame, rather than saying the structure and the incentives behind privatized healthcare very specifically is to blame. People will always say, well, this CEO decided to prioritize profit over people, or this system was deliberately designed by some malevolent fifth column to make society sick and then try and sell them a product to make people happier, one being unhappy because of the system they created, right? It's very easy to say that this was some kind of malevolent force in the background that decided to create this feedback loop, or that had this very specific desire to put profit over people. When, if you're looking at this from a materialist perspective, you understand that it doesn't matter whether it's Brian Thompson, a CEO of United Healthcare, or literally anybody else that they've pulled out of whatever pool of potential CEOs there might be. The reality, of course, is that it is a problem of capitalism itself. It is the profit motive that creates this particular dynamic. People don't put profit over people because they somehow like it when people die. It's because that's the fiduciary responsibility of every single publicly traded private company, that it has to, as its primary purpose, drive value for shareholders. Any amount of human suffering that arises from that, whether it's people who aren't covered, people who are covered who don't get those things remunerated from their insurance, or whether it's people who get screwed over by failed policies from private healthcare corporations, these haven't been done specifically and malevolently to try and make people unhappy or to make people sick or to make people angry. It's been done because they want to make money, because that's what the sole interest of every single company is. The externality is irrelevant to the initial transaction of MCM Prime, which is turning money into a commodity, into money plus profit. Simple as that. It's incredibly simple to understand the driving force behind capitalist accumulation and capitalist market economies, and why we get this position in the first place. But unless you have a fundamental critique of capitalism that is based in the material outcomes and the material interests of the classes of people who are represented in capitalism, you're going to otherwise try and say, well, there could be a different capitalism, right? This could be a problem with people at the top who are choosing to make these decisions, when of course it is not.
It almost doesn't matter what his politics is, does it? I mean, whether he's a lefty or right-winger, the truth is he is still someone who is a victim of private healthcare, and maybe trying to marginalise someone on a particular wing of the political spectrum is sort of playing into the sort of liberal individualism, because there is one person who has been doing that, and that's Ben Shapiro. Over the weekend, this was the original story we're going to go with, but we're still going to sort of chuck it in there. Ben Shapiro, other big right-wing content creators such as Matt Walsh, they went on YouTube and said, this is the fault of the radical revolutionary left and they're all murderers and they're violent people, right? And what was really funny about that is the comment section under these videos were dragging him. They're saying this isn't a left-right issue. And trying to do that kind of means you're out of touch. I believe we actually have a clip from Ben Shapiro attacking just the left on this rather than looking at the bigger picture.
Unfortunately, bubbling under the surface of all this is something very serious, really serious. What is that serious thing? The revolutionary left is creeping into the mainstream. Yesterday we talked about liberals versus the left. Liberals are people who disagree with me on public policy, but aren't in favor of, the murder of their opponents. The left is a different thing. The shooting of Thompson has unleashed a wave of evil from members of the left. Thompson was not a criminal. He wasn't even an advocate of death the way, for example, abortion or euthanasia advocates are. And by the way, murdering an abortionist or an advocate of euthanasia would be unjustifiable morally in a democratic system. Brian Thompson's great sin, according to these people, is that he was the head of a company that exists within a mixed private-public healthcare framework and that he did his job, because that's how health insurance actually works. Some things are covered and some things are not. And you may not like the application of the coverage, and it may be bad. That is not an excuse for murder. But for the left, if you hate the system, you are morally justified in murdering anyone who acts within the system.
First of all, it's kind of strange that he says that Brian Thompson isn't someone who killed anyone. I mean, I think you can categorically say that the decisions he's made have killed people, right? Not just the fact that he's a healthcare CEO. That's one thing. Being in that position, you're already in a position where you're killing people just based on trying to, increase your profits for the shareholders. But him specifically, and I don't want to individualize it, but him specifically has done some terrible things, such as using AI to process claims, and 90% of it have been wrong. So people have been denied claims for their health insurance when they were entitled to it because the guy wanted to, save money. But the comment section was really funny. It was probably some of his own supporters and others who came to his video and said, look, this isn't a left-right issue. And in fact, you're the problem because you're trying to divide us when actually, at the end of the day, we all suffer from private healthcare. There are people saying, I'm a conservative and my dad died of cancer because he wasn't given the healthcare he needed. And I suppose the danger, the trap that we don't want to fall into, the worst thing we could do on the left is say, well, actually, he was a right-winger. It doesn't matter about his politics, as you've just alluded to. What matters is raising the class consciousness of people and understanding whether you're conservative, liberal, if you are someone who is being exploited through healthcare, that puts us in the same economic position, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, 100%. Absolutely puts people in the same position. What I think is very interesting in the kind of broad failure of the neoliberal consensus that we've seen over the past however many weeks and days and months and years of neoliberalism continually failing to actually create a livable society for people to want to actually participate in. I mean, famously, neoliberals don't believe in such a thing as society. People, whether they go to the radical right or the far left, they understand that this over-individualization, this atomization of society has created a bunch of market economic, societal, and political failures that cannot be solved by more individualism. There is this, the hyper-individualism of neoliberalism has created a consensus of people who want to see more collective policy being enacted. And, the issue is how do you capture that? Do you capture that in the kind of tweets we saw from this man talking about how we need to fix the kind of cultural breakdown of Japan, not with immigration, but by promoting these different kind of spiritual causes, or saying, well, actually, the real issue is class consciousness. If we want to find a community, we want to find a collective of people who share similar interests to be able to create a better society for people, that's going to have to come through class consciousness, through people finding the avenues with which that collectively, as people have the same material interest of being opposed to the domination of the bourgeois, to being opposed to having the thumb of the private healthcare CEO either point up or point down in your direction as to whether or not you can afford or even be able to have access to care in the first place, that is the kind of allyship that we're going to have to take. People are finding it very easy to be distracted by cultural bullshit that massively impedes us from able to find common cause on class issues. And this is the deliberate tactic people like Ben Shapiro, people like Matt Walsh have been continually employed to be able to do. One of the highest rated comments in Ben Shapiro's comment section on the video that he released about the healthcare shooter was somebody saying, I've just realized that the point of your channel is to divide people who otherwise would be normal people who unite together. or something to those ends, about how his channel wouldn't function if it wasn't to try and find ways to divide normal people. We've seen the memes that go around on the internet about how they're trying to make you fight a culture war so that you don't fight a class war. Well, who's the person who funds Ben Shapiro? It's people like Turning Point. It's people like the Koch brothers and the Wilkes brothers who fund PragerU. The people who have a capitalist interest in ensuring people do not unite on class consciousness fund these media outlets to divide people further.
I welcome people like Ben Shapiro to continue the culture war, because that's only going to show people how out of touch he is. That comment you said, the highest rated one, which is like, I've just realised that you're just trying to divide us. We need people to realise that those on the political right only talk about culture wars because they understand that what truly unifies us all is class. That's, at the end of the day, it's class that unifies us. And I really hope they continue to push this line. And I expect they will, by the way. And people will wake up and think, do you know what? Those on the political right don't have my interest at heart.
Support independent media. Support social justice that's there on social media. Thank you. Turn left.